All right, moving on to our next Patreon request of the day, and this one comes from my good friend, the Mount Vernon Kid. Chris, thank you once again for the new list of Patreon requests, and this time around, Chris did something that made me go, son of a bitch, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is, well, my top 10 favorite horror movies from the 90s. Now, the 90s were an important age for, I think, a lot of my generation, because that introduced us to a lot of spooky stuff. And initially I thought, man, this list is going to be easy. I know my 10. And then I realized what movies were in the 90s, and a lot of them were some of my favorites. And holy shit, this was pretty hard. God damn it, Chris, why did you do this to me? So, yeah. So this is going to be a fun one. And as always, if you guys would like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon, hit the third tier, that'll allow you access to do so, and allow you to check out all the videos on the other tiers. Everybody wins. Anyway, so as always with these top 10 lists, if you think a movie should be higher or lower on the list, that's totally fine, no problem. And yeah, this is just my personal list, and this is just my personal, this is just my personal list. This is just how I view this, this list. This is just how this is just my personal favorites and how I rank them. And even then, I wasn't totally 100% happy with it, but this is the closest I'm going to get. And again, if I do another top 10 list, these movies may be changed, because there are a lot of movies in the 90s I really loved. And this list was very hard to make. So I actually got advice from my girlfriend, who basically she told me, if you can never watch these, what 10 movies could you not bear to ever see again? Like, yeah, just pick 10 movies you would, you couldn't bear to, have, they're gone, if you could pick 10 movies and the rest are taken forever, what 10 movies are you saving? So these are the ones I would choose to save in this scenario, and ranking them was actually pretty hard. Even my number one, it could vary any day. Anyway, so here we go. Also, another thing, the 90s were known for a lot of kids family horror, like Casper and Hocus Pocus and Nightmare Before Christmas. I didn't add those to the list because that's more family horror. We're going straight for the throat horror. This is straight up horror. We're not doing kid stuff. I also did not have Jurassic Park on this list, even though it pained me not to have it here, because that's more sci-fi horror. That's more science fiction than it is horror. So, again, we're going straight horror with this one. Anyway, so here we go. Starting off at number 10, we have Anaconda. Anaconda is my first... For those who don't know, Anaconda was my first horror movie. It was my first horror movie. I have vivid images of remembering seeing that movie through and through. It's a dumb movie. Don't get me wrong. It's not a great movie, but it is a fun movie. Practical effects for the anacondas are great. That scene with Owen Wilson's body inside the snake still screaming, that was actually a really haunting image for me as a kid. Also, that internal shot of John Voight getting swallowed was also a fascinating shot, to say the least. This cast is really solid. I love how the snake still holds up. When they use CGI for the anacondas, it still holds up very well for a movie of this age. So I gotta give credit where credit is due. This movie is really solid. Number 9, Tremors. Tremors is just a fun movie. It's another fun creature feature film that I watched at a young age. It's also I think this could be a good horror movie that you could watch with your, this could be a great intro for horrors for kids. If they've seen and can handle Hocus Pocus and Nightmare Before Christmas and Gremlins, which also I had to put out because I was well, it's more family horror than anything else. But this borders the line of good intro for horror for your kids. If they handled Jaws, then they could probably handle Tremors as well. The dialogue is great. I love quoting this movie sometimes. I try to quote it as many times as I can. And Burt Gummer is just a certified horror hero. So, yeah. Tremors was good. Tremors and Anaconda. Here's the thing. Tremors and Anaconda were going to be on this list no matter what. Like, no matter how many changes I made to this list, Tremors and Anaconda were going to be on this list because they were, like, again, my introduction to this genre. So, yeah, there you go. Next up at number 8, Event Horizon. I saw this movie way too young. I was way too young, and I don't know if that scarred me for the better or for the worst, but Event Horizon is a beautiful film. Paul W.S. Anderson, or was it Wes Anderson? It's one of the Andersons. Yeah, it's Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson may suck ass at, an Alien Predator movie or the Resident Evil movies, but this movie's a certified banger. The jump cuts actually feel with the trippy vibe. It really does feel like a Hellraiser film. It really has, and again, I think Anderson said that this is supposed to be Hellraiser adjacent. Like in his heart, he's like, yeah, this is connected to the Hellraiser universe, which would make sense because Sam Neill looks like a Cenobite by the end of it. Great special effects, both practical and CGI. I love the cosmic horror of it all, and it's just fun. It's just a great movie. It's a fun, haunted house ride in space. And it has a really solid cast, too. Like, I can name a majority of those actors. You had Jason Isaacs, Sean Pertwee, Lawrence Fishburne. You had, of course, Sam Neill. You had a lot of people. Like, when you go back and see this... Every time I go back and see this movie, I was like, oh, yeah, you're in this movie. Like, there's actors in here that I will legit, look at and be like, oh, shit, I forgot you were in this movie. Holy shit. Yeah. It's a pretty fun movie if you haven't seen it already. Alright, number 7, Bride of Chucky. Bride of Chucky is my favorite of the Chucky films, and to not have it on this list would have been a crime against nature. Bride of Chucky reinvigorated the Child's Play franchise after Child's Play 3 sucked so bad. The film has great comedic timing. It has some great kills in it. The only thing that really holds it back are the two main lovers in the film. This movie should have, thankfully, it gets balanced out with how well Brad Dourif and Jennifer Tilly play off of each other. And apparently, that whole line where she's like, hey, have you got a rubber? And he's like, have I got a rubber? Tiff, look at me! I'm all rubber! That was all improvised. Tilly threw the line out there, and, Brad Dourif, immediately shot back with that line, and Don Mancini was like, oh my god, that's perfect! So I do appreciate, just the comedic timing between the two of them. And the puppet effects are really good, too. It definitely really also has a lot of root of horror, classic Universal horror in this franchise. Again, with they reference Bride of Frankenstein, and it does have a lot of that vibe of classic Universal monsters to it. It really does feel like at times it's more of a gorier version of a James Whale film. That may not make sense, but it kind of does. So yeah, now we have reached number 6, and at number 6, Army of Darkness. Did you really think this movie was not going to be on this list? Yeah, there was no fucking way on God's green earth was I going to do a horror films of the 90s, because I am a child of the 90s. There was no way Army of Darkness was not going to be on this list. Army of Darkness was my first Evil Dead film. It was, yeah, for some reason whenever I watch franchise movies, I always see one of the sequels first before one of the other films. So the fact is Army of Darkness also is probably for the better, because there is gore there, but there's a lot of great comedy to it. Of course, Bruce Campbell is immaculate, and his chin is just chiseled by gods, but some of the best lines out there. And yeah, like I said in my ranking for Evil Dead movies, there's no bad Evil Dead movie. Even though I ranked this one last, it's still a great fucking time. Anyway, now we're at the top 5. And honestly, these movies could be switched around anywhere. This one, getting the second half, I had a loose idea for, even though I had to drop a few movies. But this one, I would like when I got to the top 5, I was like, ah, shit, this is even tougher now. Like this is going to be even tougher. So at number 5, Exorcist 3, the best Exorcist movie. Exorcist 3 is a great cop drama. It has some breathtaking set pieces and the greatest jump scare of all time. That scene is going to be remembered in cinema for all time. The film has a great look at loss and grief, as well as it's a great follow-up to the first film, more so than The Heretic, I think we can all agree. And it's the best Exorcist, even though I think The Exorcist is I have reverence for that movie. I've said it before, and I do like it. But I think, on a personal level, Exorcist 3 is a film I think is better. I think George C. Scott gives an amazing performance. I think that, this is Brad Dourif's best performance as the Gemini Killer. I think it is hands down his best performance out of any film he's ever done, even more than the Chucky films. And don't get me wrong, I love him as Chucky. Do not get that twisted. I'm just saying, on a personal level, I think that scene, that monologue, is hands down Brad Dourif's best performance. So yeah, there you go. Exorcist 3. Number 4, In the Mouth of Madness. Take everything I said from Event Horizon and apply it to this. This movie is a great cosmic horror story, and it's one of John Carpenter's underrated classics. Although, to be fair, I think all of his movies are underrated classics because we don't appreciate them until we actually watch them again, without some critic saying, this movie sucks. And then we have our own opinion of it. Yeah, Siskel and Ebert can go eat a dick. I don't know. Let me just go into this little moment real fast. I really do appreciate, I think there's a place for movie critics, but also there's some movie critics out there who really just feel superior to they think because they have this superiority of judging a film that it makes them better than most people. So you could really get that aura from Siskel and Ebert. And I don't know, watch it. They do have valid points, don't get me wrong, especially with a lot of movies. But there are other times where it's just you just don't like horror. That's, that's the problem, is that you just don't like it. And maybe it's just because, as a horror fan, critics usually shit on a movie unless it has, naked old people and bizarre shots and also looks artur than anything else. Hereditary can go fuck itself. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. I'll get off. Getting back to The Mouth of Madness. The Mouth of Madness is a film that is probably one of the best H.P. Lovecraft film ever. That isn't an H.P. Lovecraft film. Sure, you have The Mist and also the Brian Yuzna and the Brian Yuzna films Reanimator and From Beyond, and those are all really great too. I think those are also really great adaptations of film of Lovecraft's work. But this is by far excuse me, the top, this is the top of the mountain of madness. In the Mouth of Madness has been getting a lot of love as of late, and I'm really happy to see that its love for this film is expanded for Lovecraft fans and for fans of cinema. Anyway, moving on to our top 3. And again, these could all be number 1 given on any given day. Any given day, these could be number 1 in any way, shape, or form. At number 3, Silence of the Lambs, an Oscar-winning horror movie. What more can I say about this movie that hasn't already been said? This is a film that has brilliant writing, brilliant cast. Of course, hello, Clarice. And Buffalo Bill with the good old, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. I'd fuck me so hard. Yeah, so I really love this movie. It's a damn great film. It doesn't feel artsy, even though it did win Oscars, and it feels like an authentic crime horror thriller. And Hannibal Lecter became a horror icon because of this film. Oh. Now, number 2. Sleepy Motherfucking Hollow. Sleepy Hollow is probably Tim Burton's most goriest film. It is a movie that it feels like a Hammer horror film. Like, it really does feel like an authentic Hammer horror movie to really, like, enjoy. Not just because Michael Gough and, Christopher Lee, can't believe I forgot the name, are here and gives it that level of aura to it, but also, like, the set pieces, the oversaturation of red for the blood, and the storytelling all feels like the most big love letter to Hammer Studios. Some of it, like, it's the Headless Horseman is great. I love that. This film just oozes atmosphere and storytelling throughout. So yeah. So now we come to number 1. And yes, I have been looking at a list the whole time. So you may be asking, well, what is my number 1? What could be my number 1? Well, it's a movie that I have seen multiple times. It is a movie that I have watched that I have great reverence for because of how it looks, how it sounds. It's a beautiful film, and it had a major impact on me and my writing. And that movie is Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. This movie is something from an era that we have not seen and probably haven't seen in a long time of Oscar-winning horror, where you have a star-studded cast playing in a horror movie straight like a horror film and not dancing around like some kind of horror thriller. This movie is a Dracula adaptation with no CGI, no anything. It has great costuming, great creature effects. Everything about this movie, Coppola put his heart and soul in this movie. And not to take away from Godfather. Godfather is obviously the GOAT when it comes to Coppola films. But this is a great film through and through in its own right. And it's kind of cool that, like, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu is going for this kind of feel too, you know. With this whole thing of, you know, bringing in a star-studded cast, having a high budget for the film, and giving it that aura and atmosphere of a true Dracula film. So I really do feel like Bram Stoker's Dracula and how that was shot probably had a hand in Robert Eggers wanting to do Nosferatu as well. Wouldn't be shocked. Also, on a personal note, whenever I write Dracula as a character in a book or a story or short story, I imagine this Dracula. I imagine this is the Dracula I am basing all of my work on. He is a perfect combination of both savagery and, you know, humanity. And it's said best, like, he's a monster who wears the face of a man. And that's perfect for Oldman, even though I cannot decide who's the best Dracula, Lugosi, Oldman, or Lee. But when I think of Dracula and writing Dracula, I'm imagining writing dialogue for this Dracula. So there you go, guys. That is pretty much my top 10 horror movies of the 90s. Yeah, just comment below. Let me know what you guys think of this list. Chris, thank you once again for the Patreon request and continued patronage. And yeah, this is just my personal list. Always excited to hear yours. And other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.